Prabhupada ki jai. ISKCON founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Samaveta Gaur Bhakta Vrind ki jai. Granth Raj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. All glories to assembled devotees. All glories to assembled devotees. All glories to assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate
Vasudevaya.
Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo
Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo
Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Mudirayet Nashtaprayeshva Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavatyuttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki. Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 17, Punishment and Reward of Kali, Texts 21 and 22. So I will read 21 and we can recite 22 together. Suta Uvacha Evam Dharme Pravadati Sasamrad Dvijasattamaha Samahitena Manasa Vikhedaha Paryachashtatam. Translation. Or we'll just recite 22 first and then we'll do the translation and purport together. Text 22. Rajo Vacha Dharmam Bravishi Dharmagya Dharmosi Vrisharupadrik Yad Adharma Kritah Sthanam Shucha Kasyapi Tad Bhavet. Rajo Vacha Dharmam Bravishi Dharmagya Dharmosi Vrisharupadrik Yad Adharma Kritah Sthanam Shucha Kasyapi Tad Bhavet. Rajo Vacha Dharmam Bravishi Dharmagya Dharmosi Vrisharupadrik Yad Adharma Kritah Sthanam Shucha Kasyapi Tad Bhavet.
Raja Vacha Dharma Bhravasi Dharmajna Dharmosi Visharupadrik Yad Dharma Kritsanam Suchak Yasyapi Tad Bhavet. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Raja Uvacha Dharmam Bravishi Dharmagya Dharmashi Visharupadrik Yad Adharma Kritastanam Shacha Kashyapi Tad Bhavet. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Raja Vacha Dharmam Ravishi Dharmagya Dharmo Shri Visharupadrik Yada Adharma Kritah Sthanam Shucha Kashyapi Tad Bhavet. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Rajovacha Dharmam Bravishi Dharmagna Dharmo Shri Vrisharupadra Yadha Dharma Kritastanam Sucha Kashyapi Tad Bhavet. Thank you, Krishna.
Rajovacha Dharmam Bravishi Dharmagya Dharmo Shri Visharupadrik Yad Adharma Kritasthanam Sukta Kasyapi Tad Bhavet.
Anyone else?
Raja Vacha Dharmam Bravishi Dharmagna Dharmosi Vrisharupadrak Yad Adharma Krithasthanam सूचकस्यापि तद्भवेत्.
Thank you. So we'll do word to word translation 21 first. Yeah, text 21. Can you come a little down? I'm up here. Evam dharme, no, the shloka once. Suta uvacha evam dharme pravadati sa samrat dvija sattamaha samahitena manasa vikhedaha paryachashtatam. So we'll do the translation. Suta Goswami said, O best among the Brahmanas, the Emperor Parikshit, thus hearing the personality of religion speak, was fully satisfied, and without mistake or regret, he gave his reply. Purport. The statement of the bull, the personality of religion, was full of philosophy and knowledge, and the king was satisfied, since he could understand that the suffering bull was not an ordinary one. Unless one is perfectly conversant with the law of the Supreme Lord, one cannot speak such things touching philosophical truths. The emperor, being also on an equal level of sagacity, I don't know how you say that, sagacity, replied to the point without doubts or mistakes. Text 22, word to word. Raja Uvacha, the king said, Dharmam, religion, Bravishi, as you speak, Dharmagya, O one who knows the codes of religion, Dharmaha, the personality of religion, Asi, you are, Vrisha Rupa Dhrik, in the guise of a bull, Yat, whatever, Adharma Kritaha, one who acts irreligiously, Sthanam, place, Suchakasya, of the identifier, Api, also, Tat, that, Bhavet, becomes. Translation, purport by Srila Prabhupada, translation, the king said, O you who are in the form of a bull, you know the truth of religion, and you are speaking according to the principle that the destination intended for the perpetrator of irreligious acts is also intended for one who identifies the perpetrator. Please, I'll read it again. You are speaking according to the principle that the destination intended for the perpetrator of irreligious acts is also intended for one who identifies the perpetrator. You are no other than the personality of religion. Purport. A devotee's conclusion is that no one is directly responsible for being a benefactor or mischief monger without the sanction of the Lord. Therefore, he does not consider anyone to be directly responsible for such action. But in both the cases, he takes it for granted that either benefit or loss is God sent, and thus it is his grace. In case of benefit, no one will deny that it is God sent. But in case of loss or reverses, one becomes doubtful about how the Lord could be so unkind to his devotee as to put him in great difficulty. Jesus Christ was seemingly put into such great difficulty, being crucified by the ignorant, but he was never angry at the mischief mongers. That is the way of accepting a thing, either favorable or unfavorable. Thus, for a devotee, the identifier is equally a sinner, like the mischief monger. By God's grace, the devotee tolerates all reverses. Maharaj Parikshit observed this, and therefore he could understand that the bull was no other than the personality of religion himself. In other words, a devotee has no suffering at all, because so-called suffering is also God's grace for a devotee who sees God in everything. The cow and bull never placed any complaint before the king for being tortured by the personality of Kali, although everyone lodges such complaints before the state authorities. The extraordinary behavior of the bull made the king conclude that the bull was certainly the personality of religion, for no one else could understand the finer intricacies of the codes of religion. Om Ajnanatimirandhasya Jnananjanasalakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha. Sri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupah Kada Mahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Sri Guru Sri Yuta Padakamalam Sri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Sri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Sri Vishakhanvitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindho Deenabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Rishabhano Sute Devi Pranamami Haripriye Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, dear devotees. So we are reading from the chapter Punishment and Reward of Kali. So Parikshit Maharaj, as the emperor, set out to see if everything was going on well in his kingdom. So, because this is the responsibility of the king. If religious principles are not properly followed by the subjects, the king has to suffer. He is held responsible. The king is held responsible if the subjects are not following religious principles. So therefore, it is the responsibility of the king, and for that matter, it is the responsibility of all leaders. Anyone who has dependents, whether it is a parent, a teacher, a government official, a temple president, or a GBC, right? On all levels, it is the responsibility of the leader to ensure that the subordinates are actually following religious principles. So therefore, responsible leaders actually go out to see if there's any discrepancy. So Parikshit Maharaj went out, and what did he see? He saw this Shudra dressed up like a king beating on the legs of a cow and a bull. So immediately, Parikshit Maharaj decided to punish this king, and he asked the cow and the bull, who has done this to you? So the bull could have just said, it is this Kali. He just had to point out towards Kali and say, it's this person who did it to me. And Parikshit Maharaj would have just killed him right away. But in the past several verses we saw, the bull didn't say that what is the cause of your suffering? What is the cause of your state, your pitiable condition? Who has done this to you? What did the bull say? And that was after Parikshit Maharaj assured him, right, that it is the duty of the king to give protection to the offenseless, and whenever he's punishing the dishonest, that is also service to the offenseless. By punishing the offensive, the king is actually automatically benefiting the offenseless, and Parikshit Maharaj would not be afraid even to punish a heavenly being like a demigod if he found out that it is the demigod who has done this, right? Attacking an offenseless innocent person. So in spite of all this assurance, Dharma said, of course, you are, a great person. You are coming from the dynasty of the Pandavas. And Lord Krishna is completely captivated by the Pandavas, and you are their descendant. And then he said, but as far as ascertaining who is the cause for my sufferings, it's very difficult. I'm bewildered by so many different opinions of philosophers. Because some say, it's your own karma, you are responsible for what you are suffering. And someone else says that, maybe there are higher beings who are, the demigods, they are causing it. So there's a lot of argumentation on what is the cause of our happiness and suffering. So finally, the bull is saying that you are a sage amongst kings. You judge for yourself by thinking over all this with your own intelligence. You find out who is responsible for my suffering. So that brings us to today's verse. Parikshit Maharaj is, when he heard this from the bull, he was fully satisfied by the answer. And without any mistake, he could recognize who this personality was in the form of a bull. So one point that Srila Prabhupada makes in that purport is, unless one is perfectly conversant with the law of the Supreme Lord, one cannot speak such things touching philosophical truths. Unless a person is perfectly conversant with the law of the Supreme Lord, one cannot speak such things touching philosophical truths. So, if you know the law of the Lord, it will actually translate in your behavior, in your actions, or it should translate, isn't it? You cannot separate the two. You have to know the law of the Lord, and that will actually, and you're actually applying it in your life. It will be obvious to another person who also knows. So Parikshit Maharaj was on an equal level of knowing Dharma. So what did Parikshit Maharaj understand? Parikshit Maharaj said, you are speaking according to the principle that the destination intended for the perpetrator of irreligious acts is also intended for one who identifies the perpetrator. That is the theme of today's class. The destination which is intended for the perpetrator of irreligious acts, is also intended for one who identifies the perpetrator. So Srila Prabhupada is saying here that everyone is facing reversals in life. You are getting pleasures and you're getting pains. Like in the previous few verses we saw, there are various philosophies to ascertain what is the cause of my suffering? Why am I suffering? Isn't it? But what is the understanding of one who knows the finer truths, philosophical truths, who is conversant with the laws of God? What is that person's understanding? How does he take suffering or happiness in life? So Srila Prabhupada is saying a devotee's conclusion is that no one is directly responsible for being a benefactor or mischief monger. He never considers, he won't point out to any one person, or he does not pay so much attention to the immediate cause of his suffering. It may be coming through this person or this situation, but he won't focus all his attention on that immediate cause. Rather, he will try to find out who is the ultimate cause of all causes. Especially if you are a devotee, then you would see Krishna's hand in everything that is happening in your life. So, without the sanction of the Lord, nothing is happening. So you see in Bhagavad Gita 18th chapter, Krishna says there are 5 factors responsible for the success of any action. What are the 5 causes? First is the place. The place means the body. The body. Second is the doer, karta. Who is the doer? The living entity. Third is the senses or the instruments with which he is performing the action. Fourth is his endeavor. And fifth is the super soul. So it's not that any one of these 5 is responsible to give you the result of your action. All 5 are involved, especially the 5th one. Even if you had the best instruments, even if you had, you gave your 100% endeavor, and you were completely convinced that you want to do this, still, if it is not sanctioned by the Supreme, you won't get the result. So time and again we see in the lives of devotees, when any reversal happens in life, they immediately turn to the Supreme Lord instead of trying to blame some person or some situation. I am very much inspired by the way His Holiness Kadambakanan Maharaj dealt with his situation. So today I would like to speak about His Holiness Kadambakanan Maharaj. From his own words, I heard a few of his interviews, I saw them. So Maharaj was born in Netherlands. He was born at a time right after the Second World War. He was 8 years old when no, he was born 8 years after the war. 8 years after the war. And he grew up in an atmosphere where everyone was busy in rebuilding everything after the war. So they didn't have time for spirituality. And he grew up searching. He felt like he didn't belong. And he knew that at some point he would actually, when he found that reality, he would know. But for now, I don't know what it is. So when he was 17, he went traveling and he came to India, 17 years. And he said he kept traveling like this until 25 years old. And in the year 1978, he actually took initiation and he joined ISKCON Vrindavan. And immediately he was given responsibility of being the manager of the guest house, I think, either restaurant or guest house, I forget. And soon he was also given more responsibilities. So Maharaj is from a family of businessmen. They're like managers. So he had that in his, he says, in his blood. But he didn't want to deal with that. He wanted to become a sadhu. But he says somehow he had that karma, he had to do it. So he didn't do it outside, but he had to do it in ISKCON. So from 78 until 84, Maharaj was serving in ISKCON Vrindavan, managing various projects. In the year 84, he actually suffered from malaria. He got malaria 12 times in 1 year in 1984, 12 times. You can just imagine, right? Someone from the West going to India in the year 1970, in the 70s and early 80s at that time in Vrindavan. When he said at that time, you would hardly see maybe 3 cars, coming into Vrindavan, not like today. Mostly it was people walking from Mathura, or they would have these tangas. So he suffered. I mean, he accepted the austerity. They had to draw water from the well to take bath in the morning. He was living near the Goshala. And he accepted all that austerity and he was fine with it. He had no problem with all that. And then he fell sick in 84. He became very weak, you can imagine. He got malaria 12 times in 1 year. That's inconceivable to me. I cannot imagine how someone can survive that. So the leader, his leader at that time for ISKCON Vrindavan, suggested that he go to Australia to recuperate. So he did. He went to Australia. And Maharaj said when he saw the sparrows in Australia, he saw that they were fat compared to the sparrows in India. So he knew he could actually recover there. So he took a break. He was in Australia recovering. And then he was called back because there was some service in Mayapur. He was made in charge of construction. And they were building the Samadhi. They were building the present Radha Madhav temple, the courtyard, the conch building. So he was responsible for all this construction, for all the electric wires. He said there's like some 11,000 electric, connections that he had to deal with, buying all the material in India. He had to go to Calcutta to do that. He said it was a big austerity. When he was in Calcutta, he said they didn't have water. They had to go, those of you who visited ISKCON Calcutta, there's a pond means it's, so they had to go and, take bath in the pond because there was no water in the temple. And he said, I have no idea where that water is coming from. It was very austere for him there. And then in the year 1990, he was invited to, he was called to become the temple president of Vrindavan. They were having serious problems in Vrindavan at that time. And there was some person, one of the pandas, who managed to enter inside, right? So he became like the guest house manager or something. And he was practically controlling all the projects, and many undesirable activities were taking place, even to the extent of prostitution in the guest house. So Maharaj was called, knowing his capabilities, he was called to clear up the mess there and to bring things back in order. So Maharaj went and he took care of the situation. And there were other issues also. So he took care of the situation. He cleared all that mess. This was in the year 1990. But later, 5 years later, in 1995, those people wanted to take revenge. So one night, Maharaj went to use the bathroom, went to the toilet. This was known to everyone. Every night he would go at about 8:45 to the restroom before going to bed. So the toilet that he usually went to, there was no water there. So he went to the toilet that was outside in the front. And there were several toilets there. And as he went there, all of a sudden the lights went out. And this was normal in India when the electricity goes out, especially back then, it was normal. So Maharaj didn't think much about it. And then the lights came back on. And somebody entered the toilet next to his. And that was also normal. People come, they use. He didn't think much about it. But soon after that, the person from the other toilet, from the top, he shot at Maharaj. He shot. The bullet went through his back and came out from the front, he says. When he was shot, he said it happened in a slow motion. 3 thoughts came to him. The first thing was, I'm being shot. Second thing was, this is being done by an insider. And the third thing was, I should not black out. So he collapsed when he was shot, but he kept himself conscious by doing pranayam for 15 minutes. And then he gathered the strength to crawl outside. He said it took some time before he could come to the veranda and get some help. And then the devotees took him to Mathura. And what was he thinking? I'm shot. After doing all this service in Vrindavan, I don't want to die in Delhi. If I have to die, I'd rather die in the Dham. So he didn't allow them to take him to Delhi, where they could have gotten better medical facilities. Instead, he had them take him to Mathura. So they did whatever surgery or whatever, and he said he was unconscious. So when he actually came back to consciousness, he found himself on the bed, and then he was thinking. So this is the main thing that I want to tell you. How does a devotee take reversals? Because this devotee who was interviewing Maharaj, he was asking, how could you forgive? Because you see, this happened in 95. He was not even a sannyasi at that time. So this devotee asked Maharaj, what were your thoughts at that time when you actually, after this whole thing? So Maharaj said, he just quoted this. This is what he thought about. When Parikshit Maharaj asked the bull, what is the cause of your suffering? Who did this to you? You are an innocent bull. You didn't harm anyone. How could someone do this to you? Who is it? Tell me, I'm going to punish him. And what did the bull say? I cannot find out what is the reason. You figure out. So this is what Maharaj remembered on his bed. And he thought, immediately it may be this person, that person, whatever the cause. But actually it's coming from Krishna. This is Krishna doing to me. So the next thing is, why is Krishna doing this? What is he trying to teach me? What is he indicating to me in this situation? So he thought, I wanted to become a sannyasi. So Maharaj said he got married early in life. He had been married for 20 years. When he was 40, he had decided to take sannyas. He had already decided, now I must take sannyas. This happened soon after that. This incident happened after that. So he thought, so just to explain how Maharaj, so this is later on, this is recently, right? Before he passed away, in the past few months, this interview happened. So Maharaj is saying that I wanted to take sannyas and Krishna was facilitating that for me. What does sannyas mean? Your social life is finished, right? It's a social suicide. You start another life which is dedicated to Krishna. Of course, his life was dedicated to Krishna even as a grihastha, but in a more focused way, with no other distractions. So, after this incident happened, he said it took him 1.5 years to recover from this. During that 1.5 year, he was actually advised to leave India because the person who shot him was never caught. He was not caught. That means it was not safe for him to stay in Vrindavan anymore. But after serving in Vrindavan for all these years, that was his life, all the various projects that he was in, and that's where he started. So when he recovered a little bit, he came to Vrindavan. But he came without informing everyone. Even the driver who was supposed to drive him, he told everyone, I'm coming at 6 o'clock. He told the driver, I'm coming at 6. And then he took another car and he came at 4. And he went through the back roads, through the fields. And then he was looking at the roads where he used to go on every day. And he could see, now there's nothing left for me here. Life has changed. I cannot go back to my past life. That life is finished. There's nothing here for me now. I have to move on. So Maharaj took this whole incident as coming from Krishna to help him move forward as a sannyasi. Leave behind your past life. That's one lesson. Another lesson, he said, when he was the temple president, there were issues like, devotees were going to other spiritualists for getting more guidance in Raganuga Bhakti, so on and so forth. And that was actually creating a lot of unrest within the society in ISKCON. So Maharaj had to confront even his superiors, GVCs, gurus, in the position of a leader. As a leader, he had to confront them. So now Krishna is teaching him a lesson. Okay. So you have been a lion all this time. Now you become a mouse again. He said, not in a bad way. It's not that he actually, I'm not saying, Maharaj says this, I'm not saying that I committed offenses or anything, or I was very offensive, or I was, I became proud of my position. That's not the thing. Although I did it for service, but still I was in the position of a leader, and I was like, ordering things like that. So now Krishna is saying, okay, you did that. That was required at that time, but now you also taste the other side. Now you go and sit on the bench for 1.5 years, right? Time out. So he sees this is also a lesson from Krishna for him. I was really so inspired when I heard this from Maharaj. I mean, anyway, and how did he turn things around? You can get depressed and you can feel, after all that I've done, this is what I get in return. I'm done with these people, right? Some people can come to that conclusion. What did he do? He took sannyas and he talked with his spiritual master, His Holiness Jayadvaita Maharaj, and he asked, so what service should I do now? Where should I go and preach? So Maharaj said, you should go to Africa, South Africa. So Kadam Kanan Maharaj had this idea, I don't want to preach to the wealthy Indians in South Africa who are very pious. They invite you to their homes and they feed you nice prasadam and they give you donations and they worship you. This is not the group that I want to preach to. I want to preach to the local Africans, the blacks that live in Africa. So he chose a particular township. I forget what it's called, Swaiti or something. If anyone knows, you can say it. Swaiti, I think. And that is adjacent to Johannesburg. But this place is filled with it's a black township. And he started preaching there. He said there were not many, very, small group. But he was preaching, and it was his main place. Every year when he would travel, he would spend at least 3 to 4 months cultivating the black people there in South Africa. One day, he would go 3 times a year, and each time he would spend considerable time. Overall, he would spend 3 to 4 months. So one day he noticed they were seeing on the television a Rath Yatra. They were seeing Rath Yatra on the television and they were dancing, seeing the television. And when Maharaj saw that, he felt these people need Rath Yatra. They love to dance. They must have a Rath Yatra here. But there wasn't enough manpower to put it together. He was alone. And there were just a handful of devotees that he was cultivating. So, His Holiness Devamrita Maharaj was doing a retreat for students in a neighboring city. There were like 500, 600 students from all over Africa. And he was doing a retreat. So after the retreat, he invited all of them to come to this place for the Rath Yatra. They started the Rath Yatra, the first Rath Yatra. And then he had enough people. And they would just dance like anything. They would love to dance. He said, everyone, even the cops, they were cops, but they would dance. And Maharaj said, That was his favorite Rath Yatra. His favorite festival is Rath Yatra, but of all Rath Yatras, that Rath Yatra is his favorite. And when you see His Holiness Jayadvaita Maharaj glorifying his disciple, he's in tears glorifying his disciple. He says that most of us will never know how much His Holiness Kadambakanan Maharaj has done for this movement and for all of us. We will never figure it out. So also when this cancer, the last thing, because the time is up, so I'll skip in between. But when he was diagnosed with this cancer, he had cancer 6 years ago. He had a cancer in his rectum. And somehow, by some treatment, Ayurveda, combination of different things, he was able to live with that, deal with that. And just last year, he actually understood that he had prostate cancer. But even that was actually, people could deal with it. But that was coming from the previous cancer, and it had now also gone into his lungs. That means this was a hopeless case. So then Maharaj decided no medications. So when he found out that he had this cancer, what was his, how did he take it? This was obviously death. This is death coming to him. And Maharaj says, this is Krishna. I don't fear death because this is Krishna coming to me. I have tried to be a devotee. Of course, I have made mistakes, but I have tried to be a devotee. And Krishna is very kind. So I am very hopeful. He will certainly accept me. He will accept me. I'm going to meet Krishna. That was his mood. Instead of thinking, oh, I have cancer. And look at the surrender. No medication, no doctors, no treatment. He just accepted it. He said, I'm going to Vrindavan and I will just embrace death. And there is also some videos about, his disciples who were, one disciple who was with him throughout the last days, telling us what his mood was until the point of leaving his body. Completely dependent on Krishna, no complaints, full of gratitude and acceptance. Whatever Krishna is giving, he's accepting it. So I feel so proud that we have such devotees in our society who can set example for us. This is not just what we read in history, in books, right? It's not Parikshit Maharaj. When Shringi cursed Parikshit Maharaj, he accepted it. He dropped everything. He went and sat on the banks of river Ganges, hearing Srimad Bhagavatam. Yes, that he is our leader, he is our warrior, but also we have live examples in front of us. Facing death, we had His Holiness Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj several years ago. We have currently His Holiness, many actually now, many leaders are going through different health crises, but how are they taking it? So they're setting example for us. So in this purport, Srila Prabhupada is saying, a devotee's conclusion is that no one is directly responsible. It may be immediate cause, maybe this or that or whatever. But under a devotee sees Krishna in everything. He can see Krishna in death. Isn't that amazing? He takes it for granted that either benefit or loss is God sent. That is His grace. When it is benefited, it is easy to say, Krishna has done it. Yes? But when there are reversals, it's easy to become doubtful. Why is Krishna doing this to me? right? And Prabhupada is giving the example of Jesus Christ. Jesus Christ. He never got angry with the mischief mongers. Haridas Thakur, he never got angry with those people who were beating him in those 22 marketplaces. Rather, he was praying to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, please don't take this as their offense. They don't know what they're doing. Similar to what Jesus Christ was praying, right? They don't know what they're doing. He was never angry. So this is a devotee. For a devotee to identify the sinner is equally sinful as the mischief monger. Whoever is committing the sin and one who is identifying the sinner is he deserves the same, result. Of course, this is personally, right? Obviously, all the examples that we've seen, when he's personally going through some difficulty, he sees Krishna's hand. We can even take Parikshit Maharaj's example. When he was cursed, he didn't retaliate. He just accepted. But when he saw the bull and cow being beaten, he didn't say, well, this is, no. He immediately was ready to kill the perpetrator. So that is understood, right? It's not that if you see someone suffering, then you just say, this is, ultimately your karma is coming back to you. This is Krishna doing to you. He doesn't, wherever he gives protection to others, also for Krishna consciousness, but whenever there is difficulty in his own life, he sees Krishna's hand. He does not complain. That's the point. Prabhupada is saying that this is extraordinary behavior. So we don't find this commonly. So when we find it, we should understand how extraordinary it is. We should recognize that. We should recognize that and keep it close in our hearts. Such devotees and their devotional service to guide us in our own devotional life. So Parikshit Maharaj could understand this type of extraordinary behavior cannot be from one, who is not aware of the religious principles, the codes of religion. No one else except Dharma himself could understand the finer intricacies of the codes of religion. So that was Parikshit Maharaj's conclusion. He recognized the bull as Dharma. So I will stop there. Thank you all so much. Hare Krishna. If there is any discussions, comments, questions, you're welcome.
Thank you very much, Mataji. That was just very beautiful. Thank you for also reminding us about Kadambakanan Maharaj. I mean, as you were saying, I think we really need to hear these examples, hear about these examples. Whenever we listen to the morning classes, we're thinking about what do we take away from today's class, because Bhagavatam is not some relic, not something that happened that doesn't apply to us. Every single thing does apply to us, and we need to figure out how to apply it. So yeah, if anybody has anything that they would like to add, question, comment on, please just raise your hand. What I was thinking is when you were saying that whatever happens because, the 5 reasons you were saying why. So when you apply these to spiritual matters, it's very clear. Do we apply these to material processes also? Like, and I'm not talking about wealth or money or like that, but everyday jobs that we do, everyday things that we do. I mean, even if we play a sport, we put our full effort in, whether we get victory or not, my children used to swim, so that's why I'm using that. A lot of times they would do their best, but it was not going to be their day on that day. So my question is, the whatever you said today, do we apply those to those kinds of things also, or is it just is it applicable to higher matters, not daily life, daily jobs, daily sports? Stupid question, but
No, not a stupid question. But actually, first thing is, as I said, finding this type of mindset, it's rare. We should understand how exalted a person is to be thinking like this. So we cannot expect that everyone will think like this. Nevertheless, we should see that as our goal. We would want to be there. So we should be aspiring for that. And also, yes, for a devotee, he doesn't have a material life and a spiritual life. For him, there is only one life. It is spiritual, right? Even though you have a material body and you may be working with your material senses, for him, that's the whole practice, right? Krishna said, Rasoham apsu kaunteya prabhasmi shashi suryayo pranavaha sarva vedeshu shabdaha me paurusham rishu. Krishna is saying, I am the taste of water. I am the light of the sun and the moon. I am the sound in ether. That means these are the things that we have to deal with in our material lives. But even while we are going through our material life, each and everything should remind us of Krishna, to keep us in touch with him constantly. That's his program. So yes, it applies to every field. And when there is a failure, so we can catch ourselves, I would put it that way. When some reversal happens, let's say I have prepared very well and the result was not as expected, right? First of all, if I'm expecting a result, it's even better if you don't expect any result, right? You start with, let me do it as an offering, right? But let's say even if I'm expecting some result and the result turns out to be something else, how am I responding to that situation? It may be that immediately I may be taken aback, oh God, right? But then soon after that, you will see, oh, Krishna's teaching something, right? Oh, I'm supposed to be humble. And I should also learn how to accept defeat. If I'm always winning, then I don't learn, I miss out on some lessons. So it's good to lose also. So you taste the humble pie because that's the goal, right? We want to become humble. So it's good. We will give our best, no doubt. But when things come, even though sometimes instant reaction or instant what do you say response, maybe to be like surprised or you feel like that, but nevertheless soon after that you'll become sober and you'll say you should be able to think, oh no, Krishna's teaching something, it's okay, move on, like that. So yes, it applies to every field, because for a devotee there is no material life, it is a spiritual life. Every incident, every situation is actually a lesson. There's something to be learned. Okay, Mataji?
Yeah, thank you, Mataji. It was, even in asking that question, I'm realizing that I'm still not quite there. And, a year and a half ago, I was in an accident and I was rear-ended. And I was listening to you when you were saying what was Kadambakanan Maharaj's reaction when he was shot. And, he had a high thinking, but he also had a practical thinking. He did not want to pass out. And I have been thinking about those moments when I was rear-ended. I blanked out and I keep on thinking my first reaction was not Krishna, and so I realized how much I still need to work on in coming to that stage when, in every situation you see Krishna, it's still not there. But in what you are saying is, in everything we apply this same principle.
Yes.
There is no difference between this life and that life. It is just one way to live. And that is the definition of Sanatan Dharma, right? It is a way of life. It is not, oh, when I go to the temple, I behave this way, and when I come out onto the street, I do it differently.
Correct. Yes,
Thank you very much, Mataji.
Thank you. Hare Krishna. Yeah. And also, when you say I have to work towards that, certainly, but really what is within our capacity is to just try to remember Krishna at all times. But whether we remember Krishna at that time or not, it's really not so much in our hands. That will come. It's like when you do your homework every day, whatever you do throughout the year will reflect in the exam. So those are the exams. So we will do well in the exam if we do our daily work properly. So that's why those situations will reveal to us that, oh, I'm not there, right? I don't have Krishna. And it's good. It's good to realize that. It will make us humble. And in that humility, we are actually progressing. So that will be given, right? That at that time, being Krishna conscious, that actually shows how elevated a devotee is. Yeah. Yes, Mataji, Vindhyavali Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Yeah, today's class is very, very, very good, and lot of lessons to get it. And about these Maharajas, you said, every moment I was feeling in my life thing. So I have to learn a lot.
Yeah.
That is the lesson I have to take it. And then it's going, a lot of things are going in a personal life, like you said. Yes, I'm thinking of Krishna, but at the spur of moment, it little bit, it sides, So then that I have to practice it a lot. And about hearing Prabhupada's this thing, and it's going on my life, and I had to think a lot. Like that bull says, that he thinks that Parikshit Maharaj thinks that bull is not a just bull. It's a religion. And it's telling the lesson. Even Parikshit Maharaj felt like that. Who am I? So I'm just nothing in that. So I was feeling all that. So I had to work a lot. But I don't know how much time God has given me. But I've worked a lot. Thank you very much for all this today. You gave it very good class today. Telling about Maharajas, telling me about his experiences and how they felt in Australia. Yes, that has to come. See, it's not anybody forcing or anything. So every moment is Krishna. But at the spur of the moment, we are human beings, and sometimes I think, I am born in the wrong time, in Kali Yuga. And sometimes I feel I would have been on Dwapara Yuga and Treta Yuga like that. No, my destiny is to born in Kali Yuga and face all this and know about Krishna more and more.
This Kali Yuga is very special, Mataji. Never think you're not. You're very fortunate. Better than being born in Dwapara Yuga. You're really... Because Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came.
Sometimes, like a human being, I feel sometimes.
Yeah.
But, yes, I had to learn a lot. That's why I'm here. So that's very good. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. So, yes, Muktidati Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Yeah, it was a so nice class, Mataji. Especially when you describe the Kadamba Kanan Maharaj life and all. It was so nice to hear everything.
Thank you.
And we have to learn from this a lot, Mataji.
Yes, yes. My children are very much inspired by Maharaj's kirtans, and they just listen.
Yeah, me too. I'm his fan too.
Yeah.
I always sometimes I think
You went in mute. You went in mute.
You're on mute.
And dance. It was so nice.
Yeah.
I will always miss him
Yeah.
for the rest of the life.
I actually am associating more with him now than before. Of course, it would have been nice if, I had known about him before, but it happens like that many times. After the person leaves, then you understand
That's true.
who he was.
Yes,
But yeah, but in spiritual life, even if they leave their message, their legacy behind, so you can still keep associating with them.
Yeah, I heard his last message. He was saying that he would stay with his kirtan and his speech. In the YouTube we can see the lectures of him always. He was saying that.
Thank you, Mataji. So thank you all devotees. Hare Krishna. We will end the class here. Grantharaj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai.
Jai.
Srila Prabhupada ki jai. His Holiness Kadambakananda Swami Maharaj ki jai.
Jai.
Samaveta Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Pancha kalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhya eva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Ananta Koti Vaishnav Vrinda ki jai.
Thank you. Thank you, Mataji.